Yo, what's good, Malin? All right, so let's look over your chart. Let's do the SPY first because I had that SPY pulled up. Okay, so from your setup, I assume this is VWAP, right? And you said that you entered 0TE, 0DTE puts because the overall downtrend increased volume and broke previous low. Okay, so I follow your thought process, right? If this is VWAP, we got a clear rejection earlier on in the session. We broke a trend. We have a strong downtrend. Uh, Increasing volume, I would say, is arguable because if you look at the overall trend, volume was generally flat while price is going downward. So, I mean, and this is a 1 minute chart. So, and just in relation, the 1 minute chart gives you a lot of false signals. So unless you've been trading off the 1 minute and this is your edge, this is your strength, um, then that's great. But if it's not, keep that in mind. you know, Finding entries off of the one are generally for quick scalps, or starter positions, or you really have your edge dialed in and you knew. Generally, you should have known this would have been a long. But if you would have had your edge in place, right, and this would have been like a breakdown short, then yeah, take that off of the 1 minute, set your stop loss because that's your comfort zone. But based off of just what you've written here, your entry was purely speculative. There wasn't a clear um, technical setup anywhere in here, and that's what I was telling you when, like, hey, I might be kind of harsh saying you really don't understand price action very well, because there's no way if you would understand that you wouldn't have taken a short here, because one, this type of volume bar, you have a large candle, right? Large body candle, large volume with the wick. This means this for me. This would tell me, hey, this is ending volume. I'm gonna start looking for a long because buyers stepped in. One key thing is to look at where price closed at. Right? You said it took out the low a day, but that's only 1 minute. It took out the low a day, but look at where this price got retreated from, and look at where it closed. The opening candle, boom, that's a double bottom, right? And in terms of context, when you're looking at a setup, right, this is a trick. This is a trap candle because yeah, you'll see bearish candle, an extended larger bearish candle. However, when you see that, you always want to look for the following candle as confirmation, whether it be a 1 minute, 5 minute, 15, whatever. Look for confirmation of this trend. And again, this one's a little tricky because this first candle is your bear. This is one seems like it's confirmation because it's taking out this wick low. But like I said, when you look at volume, in this candle right here is would have invalidated the short to go lower. You would have had to have wait for this wick to get taken out. Or, if that was your preference, it's a little bit of a risk. You could have taken a starter position with your stop above here. But generally, like I said, this is a very low probable short, which is why you took your loss. You got stopped out of here because this is a bad entry, and this is going to cause an emotional response. Um, so now, let me look at it. Which chart is it? SPY here. So I believe, okay. So here is your setup, right? You took your entry in this zone here. Okay. So this is what I'm saying by ending volume. You have an outsized volume bar, and the bears weren't able to close. They weren't able to close that candle. So you got to think, what does that tell you? That means this buyer stepped in at whatever this price point is. So if I were to look left, I zoom out. Let's see where that is. Prior day. Oh goodness. All right, too many on the 1 minute. Let's go to hourly. Okay. So you hit a prior low. Prior low. This is a prior top. That's obviously shown buyer stepping at this level, right? So this is the importance of zooming out because, and what I meant by the 1 minute setting false signals. So let me get back to where we were supposed to be at. Okay, right. The 1 minute sends false signals, which is why price action is great to understand, and that like context, like indicators, but volume confirms price action, and I can't stress that enough. So that's a killer signal. Buyer stepped in. When you see a wick like that, it completely invalidates your thesis until these buyers get taken out, and you see a confirmation candle that closes below this. No, this is now new support. All right. um, but again, tricky trade. When you're not confident in your own short setups. Not saying I haven't done this several times before. Well, I'll front run a trade, but that's just something to keep in mind before you enter. Before you enter a trade, you need to have one, your targets, both entry and exit, right? If you don't have those set in place first, what that tells me is you're entering a trade off of FOMO. You're trying to catch momentum, you're trying to make a quick dollar, you're trying to ride the wave, right? Because you didn't even give yourself enough time to look at where price has gone, where price can be going. And in terms of doing that, that allows you to position size more effectively. So that way, let's say, hey, you could have taken this trade and just said, let's say you had one contract, where even if it went up, it wouldn't have been too much of an emotional drawdown. But I don't know what your position size is. I don't know all that stuff, but I'm just saying wherever your stock could have been too tight, whatever. Then you can look for another short. But if you were to come in with 100% of your daily risk or your 100% of your trade size right here, all day long you're gonna get stopped out. Because you gotta look at that extension where price is already gone when it started the initial move. Um, but yeah, one, have your targets both entry and exit, and then two, confirmations. What are your confirmations to really get you in a trade? So this is how you'll develop your edge. What I mean by confirmations is like, hey, is price below VWAP? Is price below whatever indicator you're using? In this case right here, is price closing below the 5 moving average? Boom. Is volume increasing? Increasing. Let's see where. Like this is a good example. Volume's increasing as price is going down. Is that doing that to validate that the short momentum is continuing? 3. And once you have that, you have those in check, then you look like, hey, are we approaching prior support? And if that's the case, then hold off. Because if you can hold off on that, then you can couch the bounce and the potential bounce failure back down to the low. That would be a more high probable trade, is to wait for the bounce play to go down. But then again, like I said, as you work throughout your strategies and you develop your confirmations, you could tweak that. Um, and if you'd like to know mine, I can write those out for you too. Or you can look at my futures charts. I send them all there. You can look at what my setup is. I think I posted them in the indicator section as well. But I can't stress that enough. Is you got to develop your entries and exits and your confirmations, and that'll help you stay in the trade. And then similar with AMD, clearly to me, this is like a chef special, right? Trend break, you get a short to top, whoop de whoop. Now, based off of your notes, recent sharp downtrend from yesterday, very low weak candle. Okay. One, you're looking at very short time frames. When you're looking at overbought, kind of look at, unless you're scalping. If you're looking at a scalp, do your thing. But generally, see if it's overbought on a higher time frame, whether that be the hourly, 30-minute hourly, 4-hour daily, da da da, stuff like that. Because if not, like I said before, the one will give you some false signals because that 1 minute overbought could be like a 15-minute equilibrium where you get caught in a short because you're like, oh, it looks overbought, but really it's just a cool off. And often these chef specials are really cool offs for another rise up. Um, but in that's why these take these type of trades take confirmations. One, to get in, two, to stay in. Um, because the best entry would be trying to catch the top before the break, and then you trade it down into support once you have your entries and exits, and you get out. Because then it normally goes sideways, or it's very unlikely for it to go just straight down. But then again, that comes in time. If you had a week or 2 weeks, and this is like a tough top, you got to understand your trade, and whether or not you got to be comfortable taking that risk and just accepting that loss, whether you got spooked out when based off of this, because if I were to zoom in, I can't tell where on this candle you entered, but based off of this 10-minute chart, you had a good entry. If you got in here and had your stop above that high and you just let it ride, but you understood that at this, even if price were to retrace, if it doesn't take out that high, then your thesis and trade is still valid, right? But it takes time to believe in your setup, because when you enter here and the first wick back, you're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna go back up. I'm gonna just cut it and wait again. That's what the market wants you to do. It's going to test weak-handed shorts. It's going to test to see if there's still buyers above that range to take it back up. So that's what it's going to do. Um, Best you could do is wait for the confirmation candle. As once it breaks around this low of the range, confirmation candle, and then you enter right here. This would be your safest entry. So you're a little early, but you were correct. And those are kind of like the worst losses in trades to take is when you were right on the trade, but you emotionally got out. And your emotional exit, you got spooked because you don't have the confirmations in place and you aren't fully taking the risks necessary for this trade to work. So now to look at that on, okay, yeah, here we go. I had it marked out. Here's your trend. Here is the consolidation range break right here. You entered on this candle. This is 10-minute chart. Yeah, you entered on this candle. Like I said, that's a great bullish engulfing candle, other than the fact that it ran in right into support. So this candle is getting in premature, but like I said, if you're comfortable placing your stop above that high, your trade is valid until price comes back and takes you out. Now that's a trade. Even though you took a loss, now that is what I would say that's an A plus setup, because you didn't cut your edge out by cutting it emotionally. How can you ever allow to see if you have edge, if you get spooked out and you cut a trade before it even allowed itself to show, to really give it room to breathe. And again, that comes with sizing out your risk and reward. Price has moved off the lows, taking out the morning tops. It's gone up for, let's say, almost 2 hours. It's showing clear signs of exhaustion. Um, it's gone sideways, failure to break out this top, right? So everything's lining up for a short. And then once you get this confirmation, that's when, like I said, you have to pick your tops, your entries and exits, your targets. When are you invalid? When this top is gone. Until then, let it ride. VWAP would be my take profit, right? This is a scalp. Whenever I see a strong move, chef specials are best scalps because oftentimes they revert back and take out the top. This one took time to do. Luckily, it happened overnight. But generally, when I see chef specials, I look for the reversal long entry because these trap traders thinking like, oh my gosh, we're going to revert all the way back to the low. It's often not the case. It could trap you here, break it between below VWAP. That's a liquidity grab, and it goes right back up because the buyers are still in control. But this is like a 50% Fibonacci retracement, I assume. But generally, that's when you, as a trader, have to dictate where you're out at, where your stop is, where your profit's at. Don't allow the market to dictate when you're going to get in and get out, because if that's the case, you're going to lose day in and day out, right? um, that's what makes a trade. What makes a trade is here. And you may already know all this, but I'm just going to put it here just for context. What makes a trade is one, here. Exit first, because everybody can have an entry, but where's your exit? Exit, entry, right? Exit being, uh, let's do it, stop, loss, entry, and then profit target. Moving averages, prior tops, etc. Right? That makes a trade. If you can't write that down on a piece of paper or mentally have that checked out, as you get better, you'll be able to visualize, hey, here, 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 and here, and set it out and take your trade. But this is what you need. This is how you'll develop an edge right there. And whether or not you fail, like I said, you're to take this with this setup, knowing that, hey, here's my stop, here's my entry, here's my profit target, and price will come take you out. Let it do it, because then you'll start to see how price behavior reacts over time. And if you keep on cutting yourself out here, you'll never know how price behaves, right? And that's the key thing. This is all behavior. This is all behavior based. Um, but yeah, I'll still give you a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown on the charts, because I know I'm giving you a lot to listen to, not much to break down. But if you have questions, that way I can get more into a nitty gritty based off if you want to look at higher time frames and lower time frame entries, because that's generally what I do. I use the 1 hour, daily 4 hours for the overall context, and I go to the 5 and then one for some entries. Very rarely do I go off the one unless I see the momentum and I'm trying to get in and out with size. But generally, I like the 5 minute setup. But yeah, man, I hope this helps. I know I probably rambled on a little bit and moved my mouse around and stuff. But yeah, if it does, just give me some feedback. I don't know if you like the charts more like with some context and more scribed out, then I can do that for you too. I have no problem, man. But yeah, thanks, brother.